Like when the question pops up, like, does this mean like we're nothing but a number? Wow. For someone to say that, and if you kind of sit back and think about it, I guess we are nothing but a number. So if you tuned in and listened to my very first episode, then you would have gotten to know me a little bit. And so, you know what? This is not easy, right? Because our whole basis on the name of our podcast, The Facts of Life, the word or acronym of life will mean something different, right? We talked about this last time. And depending on the guest or depending on who we bring on, we may change it up, or actually we will change it up. In my industry, with what I do for a living, we're looking at loans and interest rates and financing, entrepreneurship, right? That's what we're supposed to talk about. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. But if you remember what I said last time, it could be about lifestyle or your interests or family or fun or entertainment even. There's a lot of things that we could talk about. These are going to be really, really fun episodes coming up where, I'm going to be interviewing and it'll be funny. It'll be fun, entertaining, you'll laugh, but you'll learn a couple things. That's the whole point, right? That's what I want to get out of this for all the listeners, and we're going to have a really good time doing just that. So, it might be weeks until you hear this. We're just starting. Don't judge. It's a brand new podcast. A lot of setup, right? Cover art and graphics and audio and editing. So, we're new at this. Well, I am, not my crew. However, I'm going to talk about this week. So I'm Vietnamese, and, this past week here was Lunar New Year. And I always get this question, but, what is Lunar New Year? My kids always ask, why do we have a different, New Year? When they were kids, they were asking this. Why do we have a different New Year investing or whatnot? But still, they're learning about, returns on your investment and why companies' stocks go up and down. NVIDIA right now, one of my sons is up like 90% and he's crazy ecstatic about it. That's awesome. You want your teens being excited about this kind of stuff. You want to teach them this stuff. They don't really teach in school. At an earlier age, my wife and I really believe in that. And, with that said, I think it's really, really important to talk about, finances with your kids. What else have we talked about? And we talked to them about, stocks. How about savings? How do you earn more money with the amount of money that you have, right? And, how to invest and why do people do that? I feel like because I'm a lender and I'm in the real estate business, there's a lot more room for opportunity to have these types of conversations or discussions. And they're just good learning opportunities if they're ready for it. They're too young. At one point, they're just not going to understand or really care. But at some point, they all will, right? And that's why it's good to talk about what is a credit score and why you need to maintain a good credit score. And just getting opinion on that from teens too can be kind of funny. Like when the question pops up, like, does this mean like we're nothing but a number? Wow. For someone to say that, and if you kind of sit back and think about it, I guess we are nothing but a number. You are only trustworthy if your credit score is X amount. So if it's low and you went through trauma or a bad life experience, you suck, right? I guess that's really what it comes down to. So if we all wore a t-shirt on a daily basis, think about this, and it had our credit score, I don't know, we'd be treating people differently. Will we choose to talk to people with t-shirts with a score of perhaps 700 or above only, and we choose not to deal with anybody or to talk to anybody below 700? I don't know. It's kind of food for thought there. Just talking about that. Another good topic to really be talking about, which they hear me talk about, is how do loans work? How do interest rates work? When people are financing stuff, how do loans work? And they get to hear a fair share of it. I'm not sure that they really understand it. Maybe my 18-year-old does because he's in college, and my 17-year-old, they both have a better grasp on things. But the fact of the matter is they listen to me on the phone a lot, right? I'm always having conversations, whether it's with my team or people that I'm trying to help and, customers or whatnot. With what I do, we specialize in helping entrepreneurs or self-employed folks, finance, even though they can't prove their income. And I want to touch on that a little bit more in a bit, not specific to what I do, but just an overall like income or tax talk, right? I think that's going to be interesting. We're at the beginning of the year, and I think this is really relevant for most Americans. However, they're hearing me talk about the programs we provide, where if you have assets and if you have great credit, you can get qualified for a loan. And a lot of people just don't know that. So they're always asking questions, about that. And I think that's a good learning opportunity. If you want to go self-employed one day, it's a tough road. There's a lot of struggles, ups, downs, like a roller coaster, right? Because you're trying to figure things out. But once you have something set up that's consistent, it's pretty dang good. I love the fact that they're watching me go through this, even at this age, and just really trying to grasp or understand the ups and downs of owning a business. Perhaps that will help them either want to own a business one day, or maybe they want to stay away and not deal with the things that we've had to endure. I think that's a good example for people of this age to see what it's really like, the pains and the gains. And I think, I'm just talking about this because my kids get to see this as, examples. And hopefully that sets them up. I mean, the whole topic here is about, young aged kids these days, teens, becoming young adults and not really having a true grasp on how finances work, right? And so when they hear me on these phone calls, they're hearing all these different scenarios, of people who are self-employed, people who are retired, people who have assets but don't have, income, to prove things. And I think it's a really good lesson to learn as they listen up, they gain that knowledge, and it'll help them later as well. I guess the hot topic right now, too, this is kind of funny, but I did an Instagram post. It was a story, and it was all about digital content creators, right? It's a modern world, and one of the things that I have to talk to my kids about is like influencers. I hate saying this. I mean, I'm recording a podcast, right? But like online sensations and podcasters, it's a great niche, but it's not for all. I'm just trying to put it out there real. Like if you're hot and you got it, right? You got the Riz, as they say it, right? If you're level 10 and you got the Riz, you can make it. But it's a lot of work and it's far and few. So my job is like, if you do want to be influencer, great, and I'll support you. But don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to have options, right? But they do hear the scenarios that we have. I mean, we have digital content creators from all different kinds. We, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, we have OnlyFans, YouTubers, you name it. Like a lot of digital content creators that we finance for. And the amount of money these content creators are making, wow. Only if everybody knew what the capacity was there. I'm not just talking about OnlyFans either, right? I'm talking about all of it. Whether you're a gamer, you're a family, on YouTube, you got followers, right? And Google's paying you a commission for all the ads they get to stick into your videos. It could be really good money, right? It could be. Maybe, but one lesson that we learned really quick was the whole TikTok debacle about a week and a half ago, right? All those influencers who were unprepared and their whole income stream was based off TikTok and it got shut down for 24 hours. I wonder how they were all feeling. Must have felt really bad, really scary. And I used that as an opportunity to really just talk to them, about preparation and being prepared and not putting all your eggs in one basket. I believe that was one of the best scenarios or examples, real life, real time, to show them another life lesson, right? And I think it really stuck. Not saying that they want to be influencers. Maybe my two younger ones do. They do a lot of TikTok, a lot of dancing, and they love it. But, again, opportunity to really learn about that type of lifestyle. The point that I'm trying to make is that whatever it is that you do, you just have to prep yourself for the ups and the downs, and you just got to have a backup plan to anything that you do. That is the most important thing. Whatever your dream is, go for it, but have a backup that makes sense. And these days, there's all different kinds of ways to side hustle, right? You can have your main gig that you're trying to achieve, but make sure you have things going on that will, let you learn other skills and abilities, because you never know. If your main gig that you were trying to do doesn't work out, you'll have something to fall back on. A great time to start talking to your kids about finances, stocks, credit, income, that financial conversation. I don't know. I think 12, 13 is kind of the beginning if they're mature enough to listen or understand or comprehend. But really, it's like in high school, right? You got to get your kids to really understand that. I wish I did when I was younger. I probably would have a better advantage or more benefit, right? If I would have learned at a younger age. My parents weren't from here. Culture shock, didn't know anything about credit. I wouldn't say they didn't know anything, but not to the degree of being able to teach your kids, I guess, and passing that along, It's the beginning of the year. I think a big topic that everybody's talking about, I'm seeing this everywhere. It's like, what do you do to file tax returns? What do you do with your refunds? Every January, all the W-2s from employers get, sent out, right? Distributed, 1099s, and it's time to file taxes. Now, if you're self-employed, you're like delaying until October's extension date so that you could avoid paying taxes and so that you get more time. But if you're a wage earner, you're trying to file your taxes immediately or as quick as possible so you get the biggest refund that you can. So with that said, I do want to put this out there. If you are self-employed and you do want to buy a home this year, please don't file them until you've worked with a lender. Have them review your draft or whatever your last year's taxes, plus what you're probably going to draft for this year before filing it officially. Please have your lender look at it to tell you if, the numbers look good. I'm not telling you to change the numbers based on, your loan that you're going to get. You're not supposed to. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you're trying to buy a home and you're serious about it, just have them review all your records. If there are changes that could be made that are legit, do it, right? This is the time. Don't go off and file and then feel resentment later that, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I should have, consulted my lender before this. So with that said, buying a home, lots of tax benefits. A lot of people are in the tech space right now. They're getting RSUs as bonus income. RSUs, if you didn't know what that is, restricted stock units. If you're in the tech space, like Google and Apple and just all the big boys, right? Any tech company that you're working for, you'll get paid in a form of stocks, right? Mostly the company's public. And so whatever, let's say your salary is like $150 or $150K is what you make, but you may bonus with another 50, even 80 or, 100,000 on top of that of RSUs. They're restricted stock units, meaning you got to wait 2-3 years before they belong to you. Why? If they're giving you this much money, it's like you're not jumping ship and hopping all over the place, right? But what does that mean? Even though you're getting this money, check this out. You're getting this money, it's on your W-2 as income, so you're filing taxes on it, even if it's not necessarily 100% vested to you yet, right? So in that scenario, what better way than to buy a home? You need to buy a home, a primary residence. That'll give you the mortgage interest and the property tax deductions. When you buy a home, some fees and points are allowable to be written off. And I have this conversation a lot with people. I think it's just, people got to understand, there definitely is 100% a tax benefit when you buy a home. I'll have people come in and they're like, hey, John, I want to buy a house. It's $1 million, but I want my payment to be over, I don't know, I'm just going to call it like $7,000, right? After the down payment. They want to buy for $1 million, but they want to put down maybe 20%. and then finance, $800,000, but they don't want a $7,000 payment. Sometimes that's doable. Sometimes it is not. However, it's a first-time buyer. The thing that you really need to consider is if you don't buy a home, you will not get the tax benefit. So let's say that your home is going to generate an $8,000 payment. You want $7,000, but it's at $8,000. What do? Well, by buying a property and then filing your taxes at the end of the year, if you're a wage earner, you are getting a refund that you did not get before. Why would you not count that? You got to think about, the math behind this. So let's say that you buy a home, then next year, if you're like paying the IRS or you're not getting any refunds at all because of your very high income, you may be now getting back $6,000 to $12,000 per year, right? Because you have deductions now that you didn't have before. But no one ever really thinks about that benefit. Why? No idea. Because you should. It's important. It's math. So again, if you're getting a $12,000 tax benefit for buying this $1 million home, that's $1,000 a month. And even though your payment's like $8,000 a month, net after your new refund that you're getting that you would have had if you were just a renter, it's really $7,000 that you're paying, which is exactly what you wanted to start with. Okay, so just want to touch on that. It's tax season. It's tax time. Just kind of going off like what conversations I'm having with people, usually in the first quarter of the year or before April when taxes are really due. But I'm doing a lot of this. Going through, looking at taxes, like, why are you doing it this way, right? I'm not a tax advisor, so I can't give tax advice, but I can question why things are being done the way they are. So a lot of accountants and taxpayers will call me and discuss things with me and will spitball. A lot of them will, like my input or opinion. Some don't, right? I mean, just depends. Let's look at real estate as a huge benefit to your overall taxes that you have to pay. You got to have a strategy. If you make a bunch of money, have a strategy, right? Not a tax expert or a license for taxes, but I am with mortgages and lending. And after 20 years, I've seen it all. Another thing that I've been seeing a lot is just scrolling through. So many people are talking about like what you should do with your $5,000 tax refund. I think I saw a really silly story or whatever of like some guy ranting off that if your refund's less than like $5,000, don't listen to anybody else about reinvesting it. Just go spend it and make yourself happy. It's bizarre. These messages that are out there cracks me up. It's terrible. So okay, check this out. We're talking about taxes. There's quite a popular TikTok, influencer, Instagram. And his whole thing, this guy's crazy. So he was boasting about, buying all these properties and doing short-term rentals and investing and all this and that. And his whole episode was about how you can own all this real estate. I think his number was like $5 million in assets. And it jumped to his tax returns. And hey, guys, look, I paid nothing. Why the fuck would you ever want to disclose or advertise that? Mostly if you have as many followers as you do. Please, if there are teenagers or young adults listening or watching this, please don't do that. Please don't do dumb shit like that. This guy is not an influencer anymore. As a matter of fact, from the last time I checked, owes a lot of money to the IRS in taxes because of his proof or evidence that he disclosed to the World Wide Web. And to top that off, I saw one of the houses that he was posting about that he was like killing it on. And being that I'm a lender and I have all the tools in the back end to check on stuff, it was in foreclosure. So again, don't be an idiot. If you have legitimate ways of saving money from taxes or whatnot, fucking keep it to yourself, please. Like, just please don't say anything or consult with your tax advisor. With that said, I want to touch a little bit on people who are self-employed. If you're self-employed, I just want to say, and you're trying to save money by not using a certified public accountant or a CPA to file your taxes, it depends on your income, I guess. If you're like really low income, self-employed, maybe 1099, really simple, fine. But if you're racking in like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year in just revenue, and you're using like a very basic taxpayers, no judgment. And I apologize first, not talking shit, but I'm just saying, for those, I know of quite a few of these, taxpayers where you go to a one-day class, show up at 8, you learn, you leave by the end of the day and test, and then you're like now a tax preparer. Yeah, that's not good. That is not good if you are a high producing, high income, or high revenue self-employed person. You need to consult a CPA. There's a lot of like legalities, not I don't want to say loopholes, but I want to say IRS tax code that one person will not know about that could change your annual tax basis, how much you pay or how much you get back. There's so much that there is. I didn't know that until later in my life. If you think that your one-day certified tax person is going to be able to look up code for $299 per filing, stop being a cheap ass. Go pay a CPA the $1,000 to $2,000 that they require for their expertise, skills, and knowledge of IRS tax code, right? Let them help you. And if you are a high earning individual and you're like, I just don't want to spend money, I'll do TurboTax. Shame on you. You need a CPA. You need a certified public accountant. Someone goes to school for like 4 to 6 years and is all about accounting and financing and bookkeeping and IRS code. Why would you want to be cheap on saving $1,000 or $2,000 a year? Again, if you're high producing in revenue or you have business that makes a good amount of money, it will change your life. I highly recommend and urge you or beg you, please go see your CPA. You'll probably get a lot cleaner taxes, less chances for audits, and overall, you might be able to deduct a lot more allowable items that you're allowed to, and you just didn't know, because going to a class for one day and then being able to file taxes, it's not going to get you there, right? TurboTax will not get you there. There's a lot of like tips or whatever, not talking down. If you're like a simple person and you use TurboTax, I think it's great. But I'm just talking about that if you have complicated, earnings and expenses, you should seek or hire a professional. And I think the main point is don't take stupid advice from, social media, all right, from someone who is not an expert, mostly someone who discloses they don't pay the IRS, any taxes. You do not want to take advice from those people. Hire a professional, to do that. And with that said, we're going to end our show. Thank you for joining. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Thank you.